Hello, insiders, and welcome to another edition of Connecting Through Science. Today's edition is inflammation. Today, I'm joined with registered dietitian Michelle Darian.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, Michelle. It's great to have you today. We are here to discuss inflammation and how that relates to biohacking and our diet. So let me begin. What is inflammation?
Yeah. So inflammation is a natural response by our immune system in order to protect itself from something that shouldn't be there. So basically, when something comes into your body, like an injury or damaged cells or any kind of a pathogen, your inflammatory response is what is able to keep you healthy and to prevent this from spreading to the rest of the body. So basically, what it does is when your body detects something that shouldn't be there, your inflammation tries to dilate your capillaries in order to try to localize this pathogen. So what it does is it tries to create this bubble around something that shouldn't be there in order to try to prevent it from spreading to the rest of your body. A good example I like to use of this is when you roll your ankle. So let's say you roll your ankle and a couple hours later you see that it's a little bit inflamed or swollen. So your rolled ankle may be swollen, but your whole leg probably isn't swollen, or it probably doesn't travel to your other ankle. So
Right.
this is where your inflammatory response is trying to localize these cells and keep them where they are.
And in this case, a swollen ankle, it has to do with a precise point, but inflammation can be more general as well at
Yeah.
all. Okay.
Yeah, so it can be general as well. Yeah, it definitely can be general as well. So that same inflammatory response affects multiple different parts of your body, just depending on what's going on. So it also works similarly to, let's say you have a pathogen like a bacteria or a
Right.
virus. So your inflammatory response is also responsible for localizing that certain pathogen that shouldn't be there and that prevents it from spreading to the rest of the body in order to try to help you to get
Right.
over the sickness quicker.
Right. So when somebody is inflamed, is that the proper terminology? You have an inflamed spot then, or you're suffering from inflammation?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the long-term negative consequences of being in a state of inflammation?
Yeah. So you can see in the short term, your inflammatory response helps you to stay healthy. But actually, long term inflammation can be very detrimental to your overall health. So we do know that long term inflammation has implications in certain chronic diseases like obesity and heart disease. And one example I like to use is the impact of cholesterol. So basically, when you have really high levels in your blood of bad cholesterol, so LDL cholesterol, the cholesterol that you don't want, this cholesterol can then start to leak into your arteries. And so your inflammatory response is triggered because your cholesterol shouldn't be in your arteries. And so what it does is your inflammatory response actually turns this cholesterol and then some other substances into plaque. And so what it does is plaque starts to build up on your arteries because of the inflammation. And so you can see, like, if let's say your artery is this wide, with the plaque buildup, it starts to constrict because this from here to here is your inflammatory response. So, and then if you continue to eat certain foods that contribute to higher levels of cholesterol, you can see where your inflammatory response continues until your arteries start to constrict. And this can lead to long-term health implications because so your arteries are responsible for your blood flow. So they bring blood from your heart to the tissues in your body. But see, if they're going through a constricted space, they don't have as much. They're not able to get through as easily, and so you're more prone to a blood clot or to having higher blood pressure, since your heart needs to exert more pressure in order to move that blood throughout your body. So that's just one example of
Wow.
something we know where inflammation can be detrimental in the long term.
And so that's so interesting because it's not what we usually think of. We think of a swollen ankle.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's very interesting that so your inflammation, so it responds similarly to very different things, but it responds similarly.
Um, so InsideTracker, we're really into blood testing to get to the bottom of what's going on with your body. How does inflammation show up in your blood?
Right. So if we're talking about it at InsideTracker, there are definitely biomarkers associated. So the two common biomarkers associated with inflammation are your white blood cells and then your hsCRP, which is high sensitivity C-reactive protein. So those are both really involved in the inflammatory response. So first up is white blood cells. So initially, when the body detects something that shouldn't be there, it recruits your white blood cells to rush to the scene to try to get rid of whatever it is that shouldn't be there. And then, so part of your immune response is that rise in inflammation. So with that rise in inflammation, your hsCRP also rises in response. So we know that as your inflammation goes up, your hsCRP rises as well.
And what does that look like? Back maybe to the question of chronic inflammation. Does it help to see your inflammation over time so that you can see if it's chronic, or is there a lot of variation in it?
Yeah, so actually, you will. So yeah, long-term inflammation. So kind of like the example I was using with
Yeah.
your arteries and things. Like, so yeah, we do know that long-term inflammation is detectable with your CRP or your hsCRP, and yeah, so we know that chronically high levels of hsCRP can be an indicator of something like heart disease and other things.
So we've figured out what inflammation is, response, and we know, you know, it could be long-term harmful for us, and we could see how to measure it now. What do you do possibly, and you being a registered dietitian, how do you eat to help with this issue?
Yeah, definitely. So luckily, there are a number of foods that we know that can be beneficial can be anti-inflammatory. And luckily, these are also foods that are just normal components of a healthy diet too. And so there won't be any shocking foods there. So I like to categorize the foods that are anti-inflammatory into three buckets. So the first would be antioxidants. The second is fiber, and then the third are monounsaturated fatty acids. So antioxidants are really important for your body because they protect your body tissues from damage caused by free radicals by inhibiting the oxidation of them. And so we want to eat foods that are high in antioxidants. And two important vitamins that are antioxidants are vitamin C and vitamin E. So foods that are high in vitamin C are foods like strawberries, oranges, and dark leafy green vegetables, which are all components of a healthy diet too. And then sources of vitamin E are things like seeds, nuts, and oil. So those are foods that are under the antioxidant bucket. Then there is fiber. So fiber is also beneficial for your inflammation, actually because of where it gets digested.
Hmm.
So fiber is digested in your gut by bacteria in there. And so when you eat more fiber, you are promoting a diverse microbiome in your gut. So that good bacteria in your gut is actually great for lowering your levels of inflammation. And then the final one is monounsaturated fatty acids. So unsaturated fatty acids are associated with lower levels of inflammation, so lower levels of CRP. Those are the healthy fats. So those are the healthy fats that are found in olive oil, avocados, some nuts, and chia seeds. So those are the foods um, that are really great for your inflammation and try to keep those levels low. But then on the flip side, there are food components that we want to avoid in order to keep your inflammation levels low. So so going off of what we were talking about for monounsaturated fatty acids, those are the healthy fats. In order to improve our inflammation, we want to limit our diet of saturated fats. So saturated fats are considered the bad fats.
Right.
And so those are the ones that contribute to those higher cholesterol levels, like we talked about earlier, where when you have excess of bad cholesterol, it starts to increase your inflammation and cause plaque buildup, etc. So we definitely want to avoid foods high in saturated
Right.
fat. We also want to avoid foods that are high in refined sugars and foods that are high in excess calories that don't have a ton of nutrients with them as well.
That's fascinating. So inflammation is controllable.
It is, yeah. Luckily, there are a number of things that we can do to control it. So diet plays a large role, but then also your lifestyle factors also play a large role.
Oh.
So very similarly, so your of course, easier said than done, but keeping stress levels at bay are really important for keeping your inflammation levels low as well. So basically how that works is your body, your body reacts similarly to stressors, regardless of what they are. So let's say you're being chased by a bear, your body goes into this stress, it has a stress reaction, but that stress reaction to the body looks similar to if you're like stressed about a big presentation at work. So
Different kind of bear.
the same thing, right? So basically, when you're stressed, your body allocates energy towards making sure you like can stay alive. So what happens is your body allocates its energy towards different processes that can help you stay alive, but then it takes away energy from your immune system because it thinks that your immune system it can operate without it, basically. But then it means that your immune system isn't operating at its highest, most optimized level. So making sure that you're doing things to keep your stress at bay is important, also for lowering your inflammation.
Right. And so then I figure things like mindfulness or yoga, anything that's going to help be a intervention from that regard is going to help with inflammation as well. That's fascinating.
Definitely, yeah. Those are all great strategies. Also, making sure you get enough sleep, um, exercising, a moderate amount of exercise, things like that also help to keep your stress under control, which leads to inflammation under control.
No, that's great. I think this is really useful information because myself, I've always been confused about like, what it is and how it works. We know it's bad. But Michelle, I think that's our time today. I want to thank you for breaking this down for everybody and giving us those recommendations of what to do and what to eat.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here, everyone. And we will see you next time at Connecting Through Science.
See
Take
you
care.
later.